Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tracey Longbottom, Program Consultant for the Indigenous 360 program. The Manitoba Arts Council carries out its work on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene nations, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Our office is located on Treaty 1 territory, but our work extends throughout Treaties 2, 3, 4, and 5. We respect the treaties made on these territories and remain committed to working in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. We recognize that Indigenous peoples' knowledge of and relationship with the land, water, and air is key to a sustainable future for all. At the Manitoba Arts Council, we respect the distinct worldview and creative culture of Indigenous communities by prioritizing Indigenous artistic and cultural expression through our granting programs and initiatives. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. Before we start, I want to give a shout out to our MAC communications team, Vi Hussein and Elise Surette, for organizing this information session and getting the word out in so many creative ways. I also want to thank Equality Communication Center of Excellence for the ASL interpretation services, and want to thank all the Indigenous knowledge keepers, artists, groups, and organizations who had provided beautiful images of their projects, which were funded by MAC and are featured throughout this presentation. So today's presentation will be about the following: the who, what, and where of the Manitoba Arts Council, otherwise known as MAC, grant programs available, specifically the Indigenous 360 program, how to apply, basically the entire process from start to finish. So we have a lot of area to cover over the next hour. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat area and I'll answer them after the presentation. We will also record this session in case you need to leave early or want to review this at a later time. So that should be available either later today or tomorrow. So I'm assuming that some of you already know about the Manitoba Arts Council, but here's a little bit of a backgrounder. Our mandate is to fund the creation and sharing of arts and culture for the benefit of all Manitobans. We have 14 granting programs available under 6 funding streams. We have a staff of 15, including 5 program consultants and 2 help desk staff. The Manitoba Arts Council is governed by a board with members from all over Manitoba, and we're based in Treaty 1 territory at 525 93 Lombard Avenue in Winnipeg, but we service the entire province of Manitoba. At the Manitoba Arts Council, there's 6 funding streams for the 14 programs that I mentioned, and these can all be found in our website under the Grants tab. So since it's likely it's the first time that you're applying to Manitoba Arts Council, I'm going to recommend that your first application be to the Indigenous 360 program. Although there, of course, are other programs that you can apply to. So do a little bit of exploring on our website to find out more. And we're sharing a link of these 6 streams in our chat area if you want to check them out. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about the Indigenous 360 program, which supports artistic and cultural activities by Indigenous applicants. So you can do many things in this grant, including creating new works of art, or you can finish up a project that you've already been working on. So you can apply to create a large soapstone carving, write some music for an upcoming album, or choreograph a new dance. Another thing that you can apply for is hosting a public presentation or gathering, such as a concert, an artistic showcase, or an exhibition of artistic work. We're also trying to get the word out that you can also apply for funding for Indigenous events, such as powwows or other cultural gatherings. Or you can do community projects involving Indigenous artists. Many Indigenous artists and knowledge keepers do workshops in their home communities, such as making regalia or ribbon skirts or moccasin making. And finally, you can undergo training, apprenticeships, or mentorships. So many emerging artists choose to mentor under other senior artists or knowledge keepers to learn new artistic techniques or to gain cultural knowledge. You can also take in other professional development activities, such as workshops or short-term training. So since I'm specifically talking about the Indigenous program, it's important to note that the program is only for Indigenous applicants whose ancestors have resided on Turtle Island well before colonization. So that would include First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and non-status Indigenous people. You can self-declare that you're Indigenous. We do not need proof of your status, such as a Métis card. For Indigenous 360 program, you can apply as an individual, such as an artist, a knowledge keeper, or someone working in the arts, which we call an arts and cultural professional. Or you can apply as an arts group, such as a powwow or drum group, or a band of musicians, or a collective of artists. Or you can apply as an Indigenous-led organization. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of these applicant types further along in the presentation. One thing to note, if you're working with Indigenous people and are not Indigenous yourself, then you're ineligible to apply to the grant. However, you can still collaborate with an Indigenous organization, group, or individual if they are the applicant for the program. So we have two deadlines for the Indigenous 360 program, one coming up pretty quickly, April 25th, our spring deadline, and then October 25th for our fall deadline. We have three grant amounts you can apply for, $5,000 for small scale and $15,000 for large scale. And we have a $1,000 micro grant. So Vi is sharing this link in the chat of the program guidelines if you want to check it out. This includes details about the program, including a preview of the application content and specifically what questions are asked in the grant application. So microgrants are new to the Indigenous 360 program. So you may be thinking, why would I apply for up to $1,000 when I can apply for a larger amount of $15,000? Well, for one thing, it's a shorter, simplified application. So there's less work to do. And this is especially important if you're new to creating grant applications. There's no budget form, so you can simply list your costs of your budget and add them up to the amount you're requesting. And there's no need to create a balanced budget, which sometimes can be tricky for first-time applicants. There's also a quicker turnaround time. And we're working towards having these reviewed within a 6-week period, as opposed to the standard 12-week period of other grant amounts. There is a significantly higher likelihood of success. Smaller grant amounts means that we can fund more of these microgrant projects. And this was designed specifically for first-time applicants, since it's a straightforward, simple application to put together. So if you're new to the grant writing world, I would highly recommend that you start with the Indigenous 360 microgrant, which is fairly simple and straightforward to do. And we have these beautiful new brochures that Vi Hussein had created. So if you're interested, let us know. We can send some out to you via email or mail. Another microgrant that I want to mention, which is also available at MAC, is the Travel Professional Development Program. As the name implies, you can do various professional development activities, including attending workshops, taking specialized training, working with a mentor, attending conferences, and to ask for travel costs for artistic opportunities. So you can do a project locally, nationally, or internationally. So we're seeing after the pandemic, there's an uptake in projects coming to the program. And because it does feel somewhat safer and more feasible to travel nowadays. So I think that's fantastic that more people are getting out of the pandemic bubble and getting out there. Only individuals can apply to this program. So if you're part of an arts group, such as a band traveling to the Junos because you have been nominated for an award, you'll have to apply separately as artists, not as the group. We also have many knowledge keepers from various organizations applying to attend cultural gatherings with this program. You can apply for up to $1,000 in this grant, and there are rotating deadlines throughout the year, which happen every 6 weeks. Another grant that you might be interested in applying for is the Artists and Communities Grant, which was designed for applicants that face a barrier to accessing the arts. Or you can be an applicant who works with communities that have barriers to access. So a couple examples of barriers would be geographic barriers involved, such as having a project happen in a northern or remote community. Or you may identify with or are working with a group of people who have historically and systematically faced barriers, such as Indigenous people or people with disabilities. The Artists and Communities is also one of our most flexible programs and accommodates a wide range of activities. So it is very similar to the Indigenous 360 program, and a lot of Indigenous applicants also apply to this program. So you can do funding to create artwork, produce a live event, do a workshop, curate an exhibition or art show, or host a gathering, just as some examples of projects. Individuals, groups, and organizations can apply, and we have 3 deadlines where you can apply for up to $15,000. So there's a deadline coming up in the spring, May 15th, if you're interested. Another grant that you might be interested in applying for is a tour grant, which supports artists, groups, and organizations touring within Manitoba. So that's the key word, within Manitoba. So some common activities of a tour would include doing a music tour, touring the powwow circuit, storytelling and readings, touring exhibitions. Just to let you know that priority is given to tours that travel to rural, remote, or northern communities in Manitoba. Some examples of a tour would be a singer-songwriter, such as William Prince, featured here, doing a concert in a northern community. A Métis Francophone writer who wants to do a reading tour to Métis communities in the Interlake, or a drum group that wants to tour the Manitoba powwow circuit. So individuals, groups, and organizations of all artistic disciplines can apply. And there's one deadline, which is coming up pretty quickly, April 1st. You can apply for a small scale tour of up to 10,000 or a large scale tour of up to 50,000. And different criteria apply to these amounts. So you might be wondering, how do I apply to the Manitoba Arts Council? So there's 2 ways to apply to the MAC. For those of you who do not have access to the internet or are not familiar with using a computer, you can apply for a paper application. So this option is used mainly by elders who may not have the technical skills to use a computer. So if this sounds like you, please contact our help desk during office hours and we can mail a paper application out to you. However, since most of you are joining us through Zoom, you obviously have the technical skills to use a computer and navigate through the internet. So please do apply through our online grant portal called Manipogo. Ideally, you should be working on a computer or laptop, but you can also use your cell phone if that's the only device that you have available and connected to the internet. So since it's only a very, very small minority of people who apply to MAC with paper applications, most of the following information is going to be about how to apply online. So the first step in applying is to create a profile, which will register you with MAC. So you would either Google the Manitoba Arts Council or go to our website, or go directly to this webpage, which Vi has shared in this chat. This link will take you to our online application system, which looks like this. So you would just click on the yellow register here button to create a new profile to get started. You'll be then asked a series of relevant questions about yourself as an individual, group, or organization to determine if you're eligible to apply to the MAC. And I'll talk more in detail about these applicant types in the next slide. Check off those artistic areas or disciplines you work in. So if you're a singer-songwriter, check off music. You can also check off what genre you work in, such as country, blues, hip hop. If you're a musician and you're also a grass dancer, then check off music and dance. So you'll also need to upload a bio or arts-related resume to your profile. So if you're a first-time applicant, I would recommend that you do a one-pager bio and tell us a little bit about yourself, including what type of artwork do you do? Where did you learn how to do this art? Talk about any event that you showcase your artwork at. If you're a knowledge keeper, any cultural activities you may have done in your community. Please do not upload an employment resume unless you're working in an artistic job. So we don't want your employment resume that lists your job duties as a finance person at Manitoba Métis Federation, or that you do support work at Jordan's Principal. Please keep everything specific to your artistic career only. So if you're applying as a group or organization, then upload a one-pager about your history, members, artistic presentations, and any activities you may have hosted with your organization, such as workshops, gatherings, or festivals. So we highly recommend that you create your profile at least 4 weeks before a deadline. So if you're thinking about applying for the next Indigenous 360 grant deadline, which is April 25th, we recommend that you start working or creating your profile ASAP today, if you're so inspired, or at least by this week. Remember, this is only the first step of the process, and you still have to work on your application, which will be available online once your profile has been approved by MAC staff. So Vi has shared a link of the How to Apply page. This is a great resource where you'll find loads of information, how to create your profile, how to prepare an application, tips to applying to MAC, and a snapshot of the entire granting process. So please do check this out. It will be very helpful. And I'll be talking about some of this process today also later in the presentation. So another thing to consider when you're applying to MAC is what type of applicant are you registering as? So there's 9 different types to choose from, which are depicted here. I'm not going to go into any great detail on all of these, but info on the specifics of these applicant types can be found in our general guidelines under the resources tab of our website. So regarding the Indigenous 360 program, some common applicants to the program are Indigenous artists, who make up the majority of applicants in this program. So in order to be considered as eligible as an artist, you must have some training in at least one art form, and that could be mentorships, it could be self-taught, could be academic training, or any combination. You have to be recognized by your peers or community as an artist. You have to have a history of public presentations. So that would mean that you have danced at a powwow, or you performed at a concert, or you did storytelling at a community gathering. You have to be at least 18 years of age. I know we have a lot of young, talented artists in our communities, but you still have to be 18 years of age in order to be eligible. And you, of course, have to be a resident of Manitoba and have lived here for the past year. If you're applying as a knowledge keeper, you should be recognized and respected by your community, have knowledge and experience with Indigenous traditional teachings, protocols, culture, and history, and be actively involved in the sharing and preservation of this cultural knowledge. Another common applicant type to the program is an Indigenous arts group, which is a group or collective made of 2 or more members, the majority of which live in Manitoba. So these would be your music bands, drum groups, dance troupes, visual artists, or writers collectives. Majority of your members also have to be Indigenous artists. You must be recognized by your peers as a professional arts group. And your group must have a history of public presentation. That is, you performed at a festival, a gathering, or exhibited your work in a public space. Also, the majority of your members must be 18 years of age or older. And finally, the last applicant type that I'll talk about is Indigenous-led organizations. So your organization has to be based in Manitoba, has to have been active in the province for at least 1 year, is led by paid qualified personnel, is governed by a board of directors or an advisory body, and must have a majority Indigenous leadership. And depending if you're an arts organization or a community organization, there's other criteria that will have to be considered. So some common organizations applying are community not-for-profit organizations, and these would be your rec centers or health centers, or an organization that has done or intends to do some arts-related programming. We've even had First Nation bands and Métis locals apply to the program. We also have additional funds for people who are deaf or living with a disability. So you can request funding for assistance to create a profile, write your application, complete your project, submit a final report. So if you identify as a person with a disability and are interested in this funding resource, please contact us and we'll send you out some information to get started. Some other important resources you may want to look into before you start your application is general guidelines, which is linked in the chat. There's all sorts of helpful information in this document, including how much funding you can have in a year, what the components of a grant application are, the assessment process, final reports, and especially important before you start working on your application, what activities are not eligible at the Manitoba Arts Council. We also recommend that you read the program guidelines. So this will give you an idea of what the eligible activities are for any given program, including the Indigenous 360 program. It will also give you an idea of what types of questions are in the application and how to shape your application. And you'll also need to consider other aspects of the project, such as, does it have value? Perhaps as a knowledge keeper, you want to pass on important cultural knowledge or traditional art forms to the younger generations. Or as an artist, your new work will take you to your next level of artistic growth and development. Or will your community event include artists who will be working together to create a project that will be talked about for years to come? Does your project have impact? Will it impact your own artistic career or in a positive way? Will it benefit people in your Indigenous community? And can you actually do it? Do you have a solid work plan? Have you done all your research to ensure that this is feasible? Are you realistic in your timelines? Are the people you're working with confirmed? Is your budget realistic? So all of these things you have to take into consideration. And then once your profile is approved, you can now start on your application in our online application system called Manipogo, which is linked in the chat. So your Manipogo profile you'll see under upcoming deadlines, you'll find the grant that you're applying to. Make sure you're applying to the right program. And then just simply click Start a New Application to get started. So all those links are there. You'll need to answer every question. So there'll be different sections, including project description, work plan, questions related to Indigenous identity and community. Another important aspect is your budget. If you're doing a micro grant or small scale, you simply just have to add up the cost of the budget. If you're working on a large scale project over 5,000, you'll have to have a fillable template. There will be a fillable template, and you'll have to balance out your revenues and expenses. And you, of course, will have to consider your support material, which is basically samples of your artwork, such as pictures of the regalia you've worked on, audio recordings of your music, film or video clips of your events, or samples of your writing. So I would say uploading your support material is the most challenging part of the application, since you have to upload digital files. So I would recommend that you start working on these during office hours. In case you have any difficulty, you can call us and we can help you troubleshoot what's happening if you're having difficulty. So there's a few basic tips when you're working on your grant, and we recommend that you start your application early, at least 2 weeks to a month before a deadline. Do not start on the day of the deadline, please. I don't think that's going to work. It's not going to be feasible that you're going to be able to put together everything on time on the last day. Be clear and concise in your application. If your application is confusing and it has too much information, then the assessors who are looking at the project grants will have a hard time trying to sift through it and understand what you're hoping to achieve in your project. Use plain language. Keep it simple and easy to understand. There will be Indigenous artists representing various art forms reviewing and deciding on who gets the grant funding. So if you're speaking in very technical terms, or talking like an academic using $1,000 words and terminology, some assessors may not really comprehend what you're attempting to do with your project. Ask a friend to read it over, especially if they're an artist friend or mentor who has applied successfully for grants in the past. You can also, of course, ask me, the program consultant, to review your grant application before the deadline. And hit save frequently. This way you do not lose any information. One good tip is to write your project information on a separate Word document, then cut and paste it onto the online application. So we recommend that you ask a consultant to review your application or ask any questions. You can call or email me if you're thinking of applying to the Indigenous 360 program. And we can set up a consultation with you before the deadline during office hours. So we can meet in person, we can meet through Zoom, or we can just talk over email or the phone, whatever's most convenient for you. During that time, I can answer any questions you may have about the program or your application or project ideas. I can review a draft of your application before you submit it, and I can give you feedback about your application. If you're requesting a consultation with me, please do so at least 2 to 3 weeks before the deadline. And as I said, not the day of the deadline. A consultation on average will be, 15 to 30 minutes, and closer it is to the deadline, the busier it gets. So I may not be able to meet with you more than once or even set up a consultation. That's how busy it gets. So once you've completed your application, make sure to hit the submit button online before 11:59 Central Time on your deadline day. Or if you're applying by paper application, have it date stamp by your post office the day before the deadline, or drop it off at our office on the day of the deadline before 4:30. We have created a new thing, an extension button, which will give you some extra time to work on your grant application if you need it. So in order to receive this extension, you must at least have a draft of an application already started before the deadline date. If that is the case, you'll be given 5 additional days to complete your application. So in the case of the Indigenous 360 program deadline, if you hit the extension button, you'll have until April 5th to submit. It is May 5th to submit, not April 5th. Deadline is April 25th. It's highly recommended that you submit everything within office hours between 8:30 and 4:30 p.m., just in case you need assistance or run into any technical difficulties. We can help you troubleshoot those difficulties. And most of them are to do with uploads. If you do not get your application on time at the end of the 5-day extension period, unfortunately, we will not be able to give you a further extension. So you'll just have to wait until the next deadline to submit your application. If you want to check on a good article, we have available on our website. It's called The Life Cycle of a MAC Grant, and it will give you a general idea of all these steps I mentioned here and more. And Vi is going to be sharing that link in our chat. So final step, wait. So applications will be reviewed by a panel of Indigenous artists, knowledge keepers, and arts and cultural professionals. They will be representing the various artistic disciplines which are represented in the applications. And these assessors will be can be from all over Manitoba and Canada. Most Manitoba arts grants are based on the following assessment criteria: artistic merit, which is the quality of the proposed project; impact, the effect of the proposed project will have; feasibility, how likely the proposed project will be completed; and results will be within 3 months typically. So the Indigenous 360 grant deadline of April 25th, the results will be given via email by or before July 25th, ideally. So this is my contact information, and Manitoba Arts Council help desk information. So if you're thinking about applying to an Indigenous 360 grant or any of the grant programs I mentioned here, please feel free to call or email me, and I'll be happy to help you navigate through our grant application process or answer any questions you may have. I'm also listing our help desk number if you want to request any of the other resources, such as accessibility funding or offline applications, and they will be able to send you any further information. And we are available usually Monday through Friday during office hours, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.